In the year 1938, a woman named Conchita arrived in tears at one of my lectures in New York City. She was a picture of utter human despair. She had lost her business, her home, and what was most tragic of all, she had lost her hope. She sat in the very back row of the auditorium, entirely convinced that nothing could possibly change her circumstances. Her mind was a fortress of limitation, completely convinced of the reality of her lack. But that night, she heard something that would shatter that fortress and transform her life forever. Conchita did not fully grasp the profound metaphysical depth of those words that night. The conscious mind rarely grasps spiritual truth immediately when it is buried in fear. But her soul recognized it. She wrote those words down on a scrap of paper and placed it by her bed. The next morning, before the sun had fully crested the horizon, she took up a pen and a notebook and wrote, for the very first time, the sacred decree of abundance. She wrote it slowly. Her hand was trembling, but her heart was open to the possibility of God's infinite good. In less than 40 days, Conchita had not only recovered her business, but had demonstrated a level of prosperity she had never before known. Her story is not a miracle in the sense of a broken law. It is a perfect demonstration of the supreme transformative power of sacred writing at dawn, which is the fulfillment of spiritual law. Let us be absolutely clear about this. We are not speaking of blind faith, wishful thinking, or empty psychological tricks. We are dealing with the exact, scientific spiritual laws that govern human experience. One of the most profound discoveries in practical spiritual demonstration is that writing by hand opens a direct, unhindered channel between the conscious mind and the divine mind, a channel that no other practice can quite equal. When you simply think a thought, it is often fleeting. When you speak a word, it dissipates into the air. But when you write a statement of spiritual truth by hand, you simultaneously engage 3 vital centers of power: the mind that thinks the truth, the heart that feels the truth, and the physical body that executes the action. This threefold activation creates a vibratory frequency so powerful, so unified in its purpose, that divine consciousness responds immediately and emphatically. To write an affirmation by hand, letter by letter, word by word, is to engrave a divine decree into the very substance of the universe. The ink on the paper becomes a binding spiritual contract between the human soul and the infinite source of all abundance. You are literally pulling the invisible into the visible. But we must ask, why at dawn? Why not at noon or midnight? This is not a matter of old religious superstition or empty tradition. It is a matter of precise, observable spiritual science. During the hours of sleep, your subconscious mind works continuously, free from the interference, doubts, and fears of the waking ego. Upon waking, there is a brief, precious window of time, perhaps 10 to 20 minutes, when the mental filters and hardened beliefs that usually block spiritual truth have not yet fully engaged. The conscious intellect has not yet built its daily walls of logic and limitation. In this sacred window, the mind is porous, highly receptive, and open, much like freshly plowed earth ready to receive seed. Think of the morning dew upon the grass. The dew does not force or push its way into the plant. It does not struggle. It simply permeates the leaves and the soil because the earth is in the perfect, restful state to receive it. This is exactly how the written affirmation functions at the break of dawn. It slips past the critical, sabotaging intellect and penetrates directly into the deepest layers of the subconscious. This explains a great mystery. It is the reason why individuals who have mechanically repeated affirmations for months in the middle of the day with absolutely no result suddenly demonstrate profound, life-altering changes when they begin writing them specifically at dawn. The timing changes everything. The soil is ready. To illustrate the sheer mechanics of this law, take the case of Aurelio Mendoza, a humble carpenter from Oaxaca. For 30 long years, he had worked tirelessly with his hands, yet he remained trapped in a consciousness of severe limitation. He was not lazy. He was not foolish. He was simply caught in a mental prison of scarcity inherited from his family. He had never known how to transform his mind. A nephew introduced him to this teaching and the practice of writing the decree of abundance at dawn. Though naturally skeptical, Aurelio had reached the point of surrender. He bought a simple notebook, kept it by his bed, and committed himself to 40 days of practice without a single failure. For the first 10 days, absolutely nothing visible happened in his external world. His bank account remained empty. But Aurelio noticed a profound shift within himself, a quiet certainty, a deep, abiding calm that something was moving beneath the surface. He was feeling the presence of God before he saw the provision of God. Remember this vital rule: inner transformation must always precede outward manifestation. The invisible precedes the visible. On day 17, a major contractor from the city suddenly contacted him for a massive project. By day 23, the profits from that project paid off every debt he owed. By day 40, Aurelio had his first real savings in decades. This was not a stroke of luck or magic. It was the unerring spiritual law of abundance responding, as it always must, to a consciousness transformed by scientific prayer at the dawn of the day. Understand this completely. The golden affirmation is not some clever modern invention, nor is it a magical phrase designed to trick the universe into giving you money. It is a profound spiritual truth extracted directly from the deepest teachings of Jesus Christ, specifically from the Sermon on the Mount. When Jesus instructed humanity on the nature of prayer, he did not teach his disciples to beg for their daily bread out of a sense of desperation, terror, or lack. He taught them, rather, to recognize a fundamental, unalterable law of the universe, that the Father already knows what things you have need of before you even ask him. This distinction between begging and claiming is the very hinge upon which all successful spiritual demonstration turns. The traditional prayer of supplication, pleading with God to send you money or relieve your debts, actually starts from a deep-seated belief in lack. Because the subconscious mind, always out, pictures your true beliefs, praying from a consciousness of lack only serves to confirm and multiply that lack in your physical experience. The golden affirmation, however, operates on an entirely different spiritual frequency. It begins from the absolute recognition of the infinite abundance that is already present in the divine mind, and it actively calls that invisible abundance forth into your physical experience. You are not begging a reluctant deity, you are claiming your divine inheritance. You are not hoping for a change in luck, you are recognizing a present spiritual fact. To understand how this translates into human experience, consider the case of Yolanda Cisneros, a nurse who found herself caught in an endless, suffocating cycle of petty debts. Yolanda was a hard worker. She had tried everything the human intellect suggests: strict budgets, forced savings, and taking on exhausting extra shifts. Yet, scarcity seemed to follow her like a dark, persistent shadow. What Yolanda did not understand was that her problem was not her income, her boss, or the economy. The problem was her consciousness. I have often explained this using a very simple image. You can widen the external water pipe coming into your home all you want, but if there is a severe blockage in the internal valve, the water will simply not flow. A consciousness steeped in scarcity blocks the natural flow of divine abundance, regardless of how much physical effort you exert to bring money in. When Yolanda began the practice of writing the golden affirmation every morning, a profound shift occurred within her. The affirmation did not magically drop bags of money onto her doorstep. Instead, it systematically cleansed her internal pipe. She began to mentally process financial reality in a new way. She started to perceive opportunities that had always been right in front of her, but which her blocked, fear-ridden consciousness had been utterly blind to. Within 3 months, without forcing the issue, she secured a position in a private clinic that entirely tripled her income. The blockage in her consciousness was dissolved, and her natural abundance could finally flow freely. To practice this with the intelligent faith that spiritual law requires, you must understand the mechanics of the mental mold. The divine mind is an infinite, limitless ocean of unformed spiritual substance. This divine substance is entirely responsive to human thought. It can and will take any form that your consciousness orders it to take. Your consciousness is the mold, and the divine substance is the material that fills it. If your mental mold is shaped by years of worried debt and thoughts of not enough, the infinite substance has no choice but to fill that mold, manifesting as physical lack. If, however, you change the mold to the shape of perfect abundance, the divine substance will immediately rush in to fill it, manifesting as prosperity. Writing the golden affirmation is the exact scientific tool used to break the old, cramped mold of scarcity and forge a vast, new mold of limitless good. Every single word in this decree fulfills a specific, vital spiritual function. Finally, we must address the precise physical technique of this practice, which is just as important as the words themselves. First, you must write it by hand. You must never type this on a computer, a typewriter, or a telephone. The physical, tactile act of putting pen to paper directly involves your nervous system in a way that pressing keys cannot replicate. It creates a physical, emotional, and mental unity that exponentially amplifies the power of the decree. Second, you must write slowly and with full conscious presence. Speed is the absolute enemy of spiritual impression. If you dash off the words mechanically just to get it over with, you are wasting your time. With every word you trace, you must pause for a fraction of a second and feel the blazing truth of it within your soul. Third, you must write it exactly 7 times, neither more nor less. 7 is the spiritual number of divine perfection, completion, and rest. When you trace the final word of the 7th repetition, you close your notebook with a feeling of deep, quiet satisfaction, knowing that the spiritual contract has been signed, sealed, and delivered to the divine mind.